We are on the eve of a huge hack in Web3. You could be doing everything right and get your wallet drained. That's crazy to me.
No, that's wild. A former employee got phished.
A lot of Web3 relies on these centralized providers.
Ocean mining pool. Jack Dorsey was an investor. They have these claims of decentralization. It came out they were going to censor ordinal transactions.
Two mining pools control like 52% of the total mining pool hash rate in their KYC pools.
There have been cases where some of these big pools have already been censoring transactions.
Maybe Christian monasteries could be hosting their own Bitcoin nodes.
Or even if it was by state or whatever else.
It wouldn't be decentralized by profit incentive. It would also be decentralized by ideals, a network state, if you will. We are on the eve of a huge hack in Web3. Code from Ledger, the big company that makes most of your crypto wallets, was installed on a huge swath of Web3 apps. The issue was because of this back-end code that was installed, by compromising Ledger, hackers were able to exploit all of these dApps and drain funds from wallets, any wallet, even if it wasn't a Ledger that interacted with a lot of these dApps. But supposedly the news is from Ledger that the vulnerability has been solved and you're safe to go ahead and use your wallets and connect to dApps on Web3. Did you lose any money in the hack, Matt?
I did not. No, I can't tell you the last time I connected a wallet to an app. It's been at least a few months, just the bear market vibes, I'm stacking sats here and there, but I can't say that I've used any DeFi apps in a while. So luckily I'm safe. And yourself?
Yeah, luckily I was safe, but I almost did. This morning I actually was trying to connect I was trying to transfer some money off of a centralized exchange so that I could start dollar cost averaging into certain coins through a decentralized exchange. And I was prevented from doing it because what happened is I've changed phones recently and I didn't have my authenticator app synced, so I just wasn't able to access the exchange, and I finally gave up. And then I logged onto Twitter and saw that this whole huge meltdown was happening. So I was saved somehow, God's hand. But yeah, it's a big deal. So Matt, I'm kind of curious, maybe you can explain a little more about how this vulnerability actually worked, and if this is something that people need to worry about in the future. Is there anything we can do as users of Web3 to kind of prevent this kind of hack from happening? I mean, to me, it sounds like it's just totally on the front end side, and you could be doing everything right and just, get your wallet drained just by interacting in Web3. And that's crazy to me.
Yeah, it's a great question. So how it happened and how it affected so many apps, I think is interesting that if I created a decentralized app and I want you to be able to connect your wallet, I want to offer all the options, right? So I have to run a little bit of code from MetaMask in order for you to be able to connect your MetaMask. And I have to add some code from Coinbase wallet for you to connect that and all these other wallets. So if these apps are built so that you could connect your Ledger to it, they have to run some code from Ledger. And the way that they're running this code is that they're not running, and I think this is really the big deal. And I hope people who are developing these front ends make this change. They're running like the most recent code. They're not running like a particular version. I don't have it set to run this Ledger code, 1.2.3. I'm just running the most recent Ledger code. And so this is fortunately why they were able to patch it so quickly, right? And it patched for everyone quickly because it's the live code. But I guess by the nature of it, I wonder if this was an attack from somebody from Ledger, right, who had access to their GitHub or however they're providing, wherever they're hosting this code.
Well, supposedly from what I was reading on the Ledger time thread, is that actually what happened is one of their former employees got phished, and then the hacker gained access to that. But the fact was, the problem with Ledger is that a former employee, somebody who wasn't even working there anymore, still had access, I guess, to their GitHub, and that was the source of this whole issue.
Yeah, everyone check your GitHub, see who has access to your repositories. This is your reminder. Clean that up every once in a while. No, that's wild. Okay, so it was a former employee got phished. That's wild. So anyway, so it affected everybody. I do wonder whether in the future, if someone like MetaMask can maybe protect against this particular kind of attack, if they could say, have a warning come up when you're trying to sign a transaction, to say, hey, this is the message they're trying to get you to sign. I don't know. I wonder if we could get something like that. I think I've heard some people talk about if you had a Ledger device to like double check that whatever the signature is on the device matches what you're signing on the screen. I think that is another way that people are trying to protect themselves against it. And then, like I said, I hope, the people who are developing these front ends, I think we just need to do a better job of, using a particular version and, only updating it when we need to, not running the most recent version.
Some other good advice, or just a general word of caution, for the Web3 space that I've seen came from this account that I like on Twitter, Lefterist JP. And he was just pointing out, and this is, I think, relevant, and this is what I actually started noticing when I was diving into Tornado Cash, is there's this problem in Web3, which is that although we advocate for people to, be decentralized and to be self-sufficient in a sense, a lot of Web3 relies on these kind of centralized providers. It's not just Ledger. There's also things like Chainlink. There's centralized nodes. And then even a bigger issue is that the front ends themselves, in most cases, are centralized. We're relying on, in this case, these DApps to kind of service the interface that we interact with. And then the DApps are then relying on these other centralized services. And if we could somehow build a system that really does advocate for people to run their own nodes and to run your own front end software locally, then we wouldn't have these types of exploits. And that is kind of the vision of Web3 ultimately. It's just a question of how we can get there, because it's obviously very difficult to, require everybody to run their own node and host their own software. But if we saw that vision happen, we wouldn't have these types of issues. And then also, like with Tornado Cash, we have to rely on a centralized front end like Uniswap that then is forced to censor certain things, certain transactions. You're just forced to kind of take what you're being served. And if you're running your software locally, again, you could kind of bypass that. So we would see a lot more Web3 values kind of come out of that if we could somehow move people to those models.
Which is a great point, right? Like Uniswap, you don't have to use the Uniswap app to like interact with the Uniswap smart contracts on the blockchain. Like that is the front end that everybody uses. But, I could make an app, a front end, a website that connects to the blockchain and interacts with the same smart contracts. I just have to, I would host that front end. So exactly, yeah, that would be another great solution if we could just see alternatives, or like you're saying, ways for people to just host their own, right?
I did want to show people just briefly how to log on to Etherscan and actually, because the Ledger, what was interesting is they shared the wallet address of the exploiter, but I think I'm not going to do that on this episode. But I will just say, if you're prone to it and you want to kind of learn more about how this Web3 space works, what you ought to do is go to Ledger's Twitter. You can copy the key of the hacker that they've posted there publicly. You can drop that, go to etherscan.io, drop that into the search box, and you can see exactly all of the tokens, all the money that's been coming into that wallet, where they've been sending it out, how much has been exploited, all those types of things. It's really cool information. You can start to dive in and see how people do chain analysis, and then ultimately try to identify who these hackers are.
Well, we can drop that as a link in the description here. So if you want to dig in yourself, check that out. In the end, if you dig in, it seems like the one wallet that was exploiting maybe has 100,000 worth of tokens that may or may not be frozen at this point. And then the wallet that one was sending to seems to have another 100 or 200,000. So it wasn't a huge, I don't know. I remember the huge bridge exploits where people lost, millions, tens of millions, hundreds of millions.
Yeah, Ledger said that it looked like the vulnerability was only open for like 2 hours.
Oh
So
wow. Okay.
it wasn't all day. It was just the confusion of this whole day
Yeah.
has
Yeah.
rendered it like people didn't know what was going on. But it looks like the
Yeah.
actual window of hacking only happened for like 2 hours this morning.
In the bull market, they might have gotten away with a lot more, right? I'm kind of curious what the activity on a lot of these DApps are these days, but crazy that it affected so much of the space. So
Let's dive into this Bitcoin issue we wanted to cover from last week, really. But I know you have some more information about it, Matt. But there's it's kind of similar issues when you're talking about, you know, well, you just go ahead and give us the background. What's going on here in Bitcoin?
sure. So the overview is ocean mining pool. Huge. They raised a bunch of money. Jack Dorsey was an investor. Lots of big news about it. Very exciting stuff. They they have these claims of decentralization and wanting to keep Bitcoin permissionless. It came out shortly after that they were going to censor ordinal transactions. In the big picture, it's unclear whether they'll do this the entire time or if it seems like they're transitioning to a phase where um, any anybody who contributes to the pool can like submit their own block. And so like I think in the end they are looking to decentralize more, but at the moment they're censoring certain transactions, which is interesting. Got a little bit of pushback from the ordinal community. Some people were like, "Okay, who cares? Ordinals suck." But then there's more back and forth when it seemed like they were also blocking coinjoin transactions from Samourai Wallet, who is, I don't know if they're one of the biggest or the biggest coin joiners. They mix people's Bitcoin, so it adds some privacy to it. And yeah, what was happening is Bitcoin Core, the software a lot of people run their nodes on, will relay transactions, to miners if they have up to like 80 bytes worth of arbitrary data in them. And it seems like Ocean Mining Pool is running a different software, not Bitcoin Core, but Bitcoin Knots, which has a smaller limit and is limiting people to 40 bytes of arbitrary data. And just to put this in perspective, you might like type up a Word document right now and you look at the file and it says like, oh, 4 kilobytes, right? That's 4,000 bytes. So we're talking tiny amounts of information, right? 40 bytes of information. So anyway, so it seems like they're not taking any transactions more than 40 bytes of extra information. And what happened is Samourai Wallet this whole time, because they thought the limit was 80, they've been adding a little extra information just to kind of verify the transaction, to know that people paid their fees to whoever, what's the word, whoever organized the coinjoin, right? So to make sure they paid their fees, they have like 42 bytes or something like that. And so there's a back and forth. I don't really know whose side to be on because it seems like Luke Dasher, I don't know how to pronounce that name, but Luke, who was Bitcoin core dev, who's running Ocean Mining, who has his own version, Bitcoin Knots. He's like, no, Bitcoin Knots has been running 40 bytes for years, and Samourai Wallet is like, hey, we've been doing this for years, and like, I don't know, lots of
It
little
seems
things
kind of
like that.
incidental that Samurai Wallet is getting censored because the intention really with Luke's Bitcoin Knots is to limit the amount of what he calls spam on the blockchain. So
Mhm.
his big war is against the ordinal community. It seems like mainly,
Yeah.
and not necessarily against CoinJoin transactions or even Samurai Wallet is from what I'm understanding. It's really just an issue with Bitcoin ordinals and this it just incidentally happens to be because of the way he's combating that with the bite size limit that it's also censoring CoinJoin wallets, but also CoinJoin transactions. But I will say, I think what the problem is and what this is highlighting for the Bitcoin space is the fact that yes, mining pools can censor transactions. There's ways that they can, you know, still participate in the mining system and choose which transactions get validated and which ones don't. And the real problem with that some accounts have been highlighting is that two mining pools own control 52% of the total mining pool hash rate, I think it is. Yeah. And if those in their KYC pools, right, in their KYC pools, which is what's crazy, so they're already requiring their miners to submit to KYC standards. Therefore, if they're already down this path, what happens when they try to go full KYC or even censor, say, coinjoin transactions, or what's the other one? Whirlpool is another big one.
Whirlpool is the name of Samurai's coinjoin system.
Gotcha. Perfect.
Yeah,
so that is almost the real issue here, is that the fact that miners can do this. I think this whole issue with Luke Dasher's ocean mining and Samourai Wallet and Bitcoin ordinals, there's a lot of it just incidental. It's incidental. I don't know how to pronounce that word, incidentality there, but there is an issue here, and the issue is with the fact that Bitcoin miners can censor transactions, and there's two big players that control 52% or something of the mining hash rate.
I think that's a great point. I think the takeaway from the story is, it's fun to, try to poke at the guy who's trying to decentralize mining, but actually censoring transactions, right? But no, I think the takeaway is that even though this little pool is trying to make big changes, any pool can do that. Yeah. So you gotta, run your own miner, start your own mining pool, do whatever you need to try to. I don't know whether, and I just come out, it sounds familiar. Like I've heard that there have been cases where some of these big pools have already been censoring transactions from, a certain blacklist or something of accounts.
Well, we've seen it in Ethereum with the Tornado Cash drama. Yeah, they were censored. A lot of miners were refusing because they were in the U.S., so they couldn't validate Tornado Cash transactions. And I think it got to 89%. It was high, the amount of censorship happening at one point on Ethereum. I think it's come down since then. Yeah. But actually, one more takeaway from this too is, I think this works with both of the news stories that we've been covering today. I've been thinking more and more about your vision, Matt, which is that maybe some of these Christian monasteries could be hosting their own Bitcoin nodes, or we could get them to host maybe even a Bitcoin mining pool. And so rather than requiring everybody to just totally centralize and host your own node, because it's just not feasible for a lot of us, we could put our trust, in somebody we trust. It would be decentralized still, but we could kind of choose which nodes we want to interact with, and which mining pools we're participating in. And I think you would still see a sufficiently decentralized Bitcoin system that way. It would just be a little bit less, I guess, decentralized as it wouldn't be every individual, but it would be more decentralized than it is now, with two mining pools control 52%. It's crazy.
Exactly. Yeah. And obviously our vision is related to the religious communities, but right, even if every city in the country or every big metropolitan area ran a node, and there was a group of people in that area that said, we're making our mining pool, or even if it was, by state or whatever else, there are few giant mining pools. And there are reasons people like those, because they say, I'm going to contribute to that so that I get some crumbs whenever they mine blocks. I'm not going to mine on my own, but we need more. We need more nodes, more miners, more mining pools. We need all of it.
Yeah, and in the case if we did something like this, it wouldn't solely be decentralized by profit incentive. It would also be, hopefully, in some sense, decentralized by ideals. It would be kind of a network state, if you will, right? Yeah. So I think it's more along those visions. I think it could be cool, and it would solve, in many ways, both of these big issues that we've been discussing today, if we saw more of that happening.
Yeah. If you had someone you trusted, someone you knew that you could send your transactions through, it'd be great. It'd be great for the network, great for the people using the network. So.
Well, next episode, we're planning to interview actually Jordan Bush, who is one of the main organizers and an author of the Thank God for Bitcoin books. and one of the main organizers for the Thank God for Bitcoin conference. So I think that's going to be an exciting episode, and excited to talk to him actually about some of these same issues. I think we're gonna dive into what can the church be doing in the Bitcoin space to further see its values propagated. So look forward for that episode, and I hope you guys stayed safe out there. Avoid these hacks, keep your wallet safe, and hey, in Web3, you got to stay vigilant.